Take a second and be brutally honest with yourself, because the writing is on the wall and everyone feels it, even if nobody wants to say it out loud. 2026 will not be gentle with you, not emotionally, not financially, not mentally. If you thought 2025 was rough, the political chaos, the economic whiplash, the constant social tension, then you need this video more than anyone, because 2026 won't simply be another year. It will be a test, and most people are walking straight into it completely unprepared. For years, people have watched the world fall apart like spectators, peering at the chaos through their windows, pretending it wouldn't reach them. But 2026 is the year the chaos stops being out there and starts knocking directly on your door. Marcus Aurelius warned us nearly 2,000 years ago that the world outside your control will always be unstable. But the real danger isn't the instability. It's entering that instability with the same fragile, distracted, directionless mindset you had before. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit: the real threat in 2026 isn't the economy. It's not politics. It's not technology. It's the quiet decay happening inside people who refuse to grow, the ones who cling to old habits, old excuses, old identities, while expecting a new year to save them. And that's why this channel exists. Practical Stoic wisdom is not here to sugarcoat anything or pump you full of motivational fluff. This channel is for the people who want to build a strong, unshakable mind. By combining modern struggles with the timeless lessons of some of the most resilient and powerful figures in history. Because if you want to survive 2026 and actually thrive in it, you need to watch until the very end. Even missing one of these shifts might be the difference between a breakthrough year and a year that breaks you. Number 1. Cut your dependence on dope. No, not that kind of dope. We're talking about something far more addictive, far more accessible, and far more destructive to your mind than weed could ever be. Something used by toddlers, teenagers, adults, and grandparents every single day. Something completely legal, yet overdosing on it isn't just common, it's expected. We're talking about dopamine, and here's the part no one wants to admit. You can't survive 2026 if your brain is constantly being yanked around by the same chemical that keeps you scrolling, tapping, swiping, craving, but never thinking. Modern life has transformed your attention into a battleground. Every app, every platform, every headline is engineered to keep you stimulated just enough to feel busy, but never focused. And the danger of that is enormous, because you cannot build a strong, resilient mind on a nervous system that's been overstimulated into weakness. You may be wondering how we can say this when we are saying it on one of those social platforms. Well, have you noticed how we do not have exciting visuals? Just basic images and a steady voiceover does not give you that dopamine rush that everyone who has already clicked away are controlled by. So, the fact that you are still listening shows that you are at least more dedicated than those people, and when the issues arise, and they will arise, they will wish they had the knowledge you are about to gain, because you cannot handle financial chaos when your attention span collapses after 10 seconds. You cannot navigate emotional storms when your brain is trained to escape discomfort instantly, and you cannot thrive in 2026 if your thoughts are constantly being outsourced to a screen. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they understood impulse control better than anyone. Epictetus warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Today, mastering yourself starts with mastering your dopamine. Because cheap dopamine does something subtle but dangerous. It makes long-term goals feel boring. It makes deep work feel impossible. It makes discipline feel unnecessary and distraction feel irresistible. And when the world becomes more unstable, economically, socially, emotionally, the people who are addicted to stimulation will be the first to fall apart. So, here's your first survival rule for 2026. If you want clarity, you need periods of silence. If you want focus, you need distance from your devices. If you want strength, you need to starve the habits that make you weak. Start small. 30 minutes device-free in the morning. 1 hour of silent work. A daily dopamine fast from the apps that drain you. Because beneath all the noise, there's a version of you that's calm, sharp, and unshakable. And the only reason you haven't met him yet is because you've never sat still long enough to hear him. But here's the twist. Once you detox your mind and sharpen your perception, you'll run into a problem most people never see coming. You'll start expecting others to think like you, to act like you, to give what you give. And that expectation destroys more peace, more relationships, and more progress than people realize. Which brings us to number 2. Get out of the mirror trap. There's a silent trap that destroys more peace than financial stress, global chaos, or political tension ever could. It's the belief that other people will act with the same honesty, effort, or clarity that you bring to the table. And 2026 will expose this truth brutally. Most people are not operating with your values, your standards, or your emotional awareness. They're operating with their own. This is why you keep feeling disappointed. Why certain friendships feel one-sided. Why relationships feel confusing. Why you keep thinking, I would never do that to them. Because you wouldn't. But they would, and they did, because they're not you. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus didn't say, expect virtue. He said to understand human nature as it is, not as you wish it to be. And Marcus Aurelius wrote that when someone acts selfishly, foolishly, or irrationally, the wise man is not surprised. He is prepared, because here's the reality. People behave according to their experiences, fears, biases, priorities, and blind spots, not yours. Expecting someone to act with your standards is like expecting the weather to follow your personal schedule. It's impossible, and it will leave you angry every time. In 2026, this expectation gap becomes even more dangerous. People will be more stressed, more reactive, more unpredictable. And if you keep holding them to standards they never agreed to, you're setting yourself up for emotional chaos. So here's the Stoic shift. Stop expecting people to behave like you and start observing them for who they actually are. When someone shows you their habits, patterns, and values, take it seriously, not personally. Because once you stop projecting your intentions onto others, your peace becomes unbreakable. And, ironically, it makes you kinder, more patient, less disappointed, because you finally understand the world as it is, not as you fantasized it would be. And if you're already getting something out of this, take just 2 seconds to hit the like button and subscribe. Because next, we're diving into something people ignore their entire lives. A skill more powerful than confidence, intelligence, or charisma. It's the one thing that gives you unfair advantage in 2026. Number 3. Listen to what isn't said. In a loud world, silence has become a superpower. Not the kind of silence that comes from weakness, but the kind that comes from control. Most people don't realize this, but 2026 will reward the observers. Not the loudest voices, not the fastest talkers, not the people who react first. It will reward the ones who notice what others miss. Because here's the truth. People reveal far more in their pauses than in their words. They show their intentions in the patterns they repeat. They expose their insecurity through what they avoid. They betray their character through the smallest details, but only the silent mind can see it. Silence is not the absence of noise, it's the presence of awareness. The more you speak, the less you notice. The more you react, the less you understand. The more you fill every gap with noise, the more blind you become to what's actually happening around you. The Stoics knew this intimately. Zeno taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because listening builds wisdom twice as fast as speaking. Marcus Aurelius practiced silence to understand people's true nature before deciding how to respond to them. Epictetus spoke rarely, but observed relentlessly, because silence does something powerful. It reveals truth. When you watch instead of interrupt, people show you who they are. When you sit still instead of rushing to judgment, situations explain themselves. When you choose calm over reaction, you see opportunities and threats long before anyone else does. 2026 will be a year where quick reactions ruin people, where anger makes them sloppy, where panic makes them predictable, where noise blinds them to what truly matters, but not you. Not if you learn to master the space between stimulus and response. The silent man isn't passive. He's calculating, he's watching, he's preparing, he's choosing the exact moment to act. And because of that, his actions land with precision, not emotion. So practice silence. Watch how people treat the waiter. Watch how they react to boundaries. Notice what they laugh at. Notice what they avoid. Listen for the tone beneath their words. Because when you train yourself to observe deeply, you will never be blindsided again. And here's what's fascinating. Once you master silence, you'll start to see something uncomfortable. The biggest enemy you face in 2026 isn't other people. It's the version of you that keeps giving in to weakness, excuses, and emotional reactivity. Which brings us to something most people avoid addressing, but you cannot ignore if you want real strength. Number 4, stop negotiating with your own weakness. There's a quiet, private battle happening inside you, and you already know exactly where it is. It's the moment you say, "I'll start tomorrow." The moment you choose comfort over progress. The moment you let your emotions dictate your actions instead of your values. That's the negotiation. And every time you lose it, you teach your mind one dangerous lesson. My weakness gets to win. In 2026, this single pattern will ruin more lives than the economy, the news cycle, or any global crisis ever could. Because the world doesn't have to defeat you if you keep defeating yourself before the world even gets a chance. Here's the truth most people hide from. Your weakness doesn't show up as failure. It shows up as permission. Permission to skip the work. Permission to play small. Permission to take it easy when your life is demanding strength. Permission to stay the same while the world around you moves faster and becomes harsher. The Stoics didn't deny their weakness. They confronted it. Seneca wrote that if you do not rule yourself, you will be ruled by your impulses. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that his mind must be stronger than his mood. Epictetus built an entire philosophy around self-command because he understood that freedom doesn't come from the world, it comes from discipline. Weakness doesn't destroy you, negotiating with it does. Every time you choose the soft option, you make it stronger. Every time you compromise with your excuses, they multiply. Every time you decide just this once, you reinforce an identity that cannot survive a difficult year. So here's the shift you must make before 2026 hits you unprepared. Stop debating with yourself. Stop bargaining with your emotions. Stop offering your weakness a seat at the table. If something needs to be done, decide once and execute without negotiation. The man who cannot control himself cannot control his path. The man who cannot win the war inside will be destroyed by the world outside, because 2026 won't reward strong intentions. It will reward strong habits, and habits are built when you stop giving your weakness a vote. And here's the twist. Once you stop negotiating with your weakness, you'll face something far more challenging. The identity you've been carrying for years that no longer fits who you're becoming. Most people never confront this. They cling to an outdated version of themselves, and it silently drags them backward. Which brings us to number 5. Change how you identify. There's a version of you, a quiet, familiar identity that you've been carrying for far too long, and you know exactly which one I'm talking about. The identity shaped by past mistakes, the identity shaped by old environments, the identity shaped by fear, insecurity, comfort, and survival mode, the identity that once protected you, but now limits you. This is the identity that convinces you, I'm just not that kind of person. I've always been this way. That's just who I am. But here's the truth most people avoid. Your identity is not a fact. It's a story you've been repeating long after it stopped being true. 2026 will be ruthless to anyone still living as the person they used to be instead of the person they need to become. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all you fear, and like immortals in all you desire." Meaning, we cling to old identities like they're permanent, yet expect our lives to change overnight. But nothing changes externally until something changes internally. Think about it. How many decisions do you make based on who you were, not who you want to be? How many habits do you avoid because your old identity whispers, "That's not you"? How many opportunities have you walked past because the past version of you couldn't handle them? Your identity is your operating system. Try to upgrade your life without upgrading your identity, and everything crashes. 2026 demands a new internal framework, a new mental baseline, a new story, not a fake persona, not a copied personality, not a performance, a deliberately chosen identity built on discipline, values, and self-command. So here's the Stoic practice for 2026. Identify the version of you that would not survive the challenges ahead, and let him retire with respect. Then build the identity of the man who can, the one who stays calm when others panic, the one who acts with intention, not emotion, the one who refuses to be defined by old wounds or old stories, because the world is changing faster than ever, and the man who refuses to evolve will be left behind by the man who chooses to. And if you're still here, you've already proven something most people never do. You're willing to confront the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable to admit. We've already covered some of the most transformative shifts you need to make, but the most important ones are still coming. Because next, we're uncovering the hidden enemy inside you that sabotages relationships, discipline, peace, and progress, something almost nobody fixes, yet everyone suffers from. Number 6. Your foundation is cracking. Every year, people set goals, make promises, chase achievements, and try to build a better life. But they do it on top of a foundation that shifts every time their emotions do. And 2026 is not a year where you can afford to be emotionally fragile. Most people have never built a stable emotional baseline. They let their mood decide their behavior. They let anxiety control their decisions. They let stress sabotage their discipline. They let fear, doubt, or insecurity dictate their entire future. That's building your life on emotional sand, and it collapses under even the smallest storm. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your life doesn't fall apart because of chaos. It falls apart because the chaos hits an unstable version of you. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind every morning so that no sudden event could shake him. Epictetus taught that no situation has the power to disturb you, only your interpretation of it. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," meaning your emotions exaggerate danger far more than the world itself does. Most people don't realize this, but emotional reactivity is the biggest reason they fail. They quit when they feel overwhelmed. They lash out when they feel disrespected. They isolate when they feel insecure. They procrastinate when they feel intimidated. They self-sabotage when they feel inadequate. It's not life that stops them. It's their inability to control their inner storms. But here's the good news. Emotional stability is not a personality trait. It's a trained skill. When you learn to regulate your internal world, the external world can't destabilize you. You respond instead of react. You stay calm when others panic. You stay intentional when others spiral. You stay grounded when others crumble. 2026 will reward the men who can remain steady while everything around them becomes unpredictable. So here's your Stoic practice. Build your emotional baseline intentionally. Daily reflection, daily stillness, daily discipline. Not because you feel like it, but because you're training for a world that won't wait for your emotions to catch up. The goal isn't to feel nothing. It's to feel without falling apart. And here's where things get even more uncomfortable. Once you build emotional stability, you'll notice something that 99% of people never admit. Most of your relationship problems, career problems, and self-esteem problems come from entering connections, romantic, social, professional, as an unfinished version of yourself. That's the next trap we need to destroy. Number 7. Stop showing up half-built. One of the most painful lessons people learn, often too late, is that relationships don't expose your strengths first. They expose your weaknesses. Not because relationships are bad, but because they act like mirrors, revealing parts of you that you've ignored. Here's the cold truth. Most people enter relationships hoping to be completed instead of entering as someone already whole, and that's why so many connections collapse at the first sign of conflict, pressure, or emotional tension. Because when you enter a relationship unfinished, you hand the other person power over your identity. Your confidence becomes dependent on their approval. Your peace becomes dependent on their mood. Your self-worth becomes dependent on their validation. That isn't love. That's emotional debt. And emotional debt always comes with interest. 2026 is not a year where you can afford to build your life around someone else's stability. People are stressed, reactive, overwhelmed, and inconsistent. If your sense of self depends on another person, your peace will rise and fall with their storms. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. Epictetus said that attachment without self-mastery turns love into dependency. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your tranquility cannot be placed in the hands of another because you lose it the moment they change. And here's the deeper truth. You're not supposed to find yourself in a relationship. You're supposed to bring yourself into it. A relationship should be two complete people building something stable together, not two incomplete people trying to use each other as emotional crutches. So ask yourself, are you entering relationships hoping to be chosen, or choosing yourself before you enter? Are you expecting someone else to fix your discipline, your insecurities, your lack of direction, instead of fixing them yourself? Because nothing sabotages love faster than expecting someone to carry the weight you refuse to carry on your own. 2026 demands emotional independence, not isolation, not coldness, not distance, but stability. When you build yourself first, You stop tolerating the wrong people, stop chasing the wrong validation, and start attracting connections aligned with your values. A relationship should add to your life, not complete it. And here's the twist. Once you enter relationships as a complete version of yourself, you'll notice another pattern most people never break. People keep searching for reassurance, validation, and emotional permission, like their confidence has to be co-signed by someone else. That habit will quietly destroy your progress in 2026. Which brings us to number 8. The addiction you didn't know you had. There's an addiction most people deny having because it doesn't look like an addiction. There's no crash, no withdrawal shakes, no visible symptoms, but it quietly ruins lives, relationships, confidence, focus, and every attempt at self-discipline. It's the addiction to reassurance. Most people, without even noticing it, build their entire self-worth around hearing some version of, "You're doing great, you're good enough, you're on the right path, you're not messing this up." And when they don't get that reassurance, their confidence collapses instantly. 2026 will expose this weakness brutally because the world is becoming more chaotic, more distracted, more self-focused. People have less emotional bandwidth than ever, and waiting for others to validate you is like waiting for a storm to calm down before you decide to start swimming. It's never going to happen. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If your self-esteem relies on external reassurance, you are permanently unstable. You're confident on Monday and insecure by Tuesday. You feel powerful when praised and worthless when ignored. You move forward when supported and freeze when criticized. That's not confidence. That's emotional dependency. And emotional dependency is a luxury you cannot afford in 2026. The Stoics taught this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the opinion of others is like wind, always changing, never solid. Epictetus said that if someone else's reaction can break your peace, then you never had peace to begin with. And Seneca warned that the man who requires praise is the man who doesn't trust himself. Think about it. How many goals have you abandoned because someone didn't clap for you immediately? How many times did you stop doing something because someone questioned you? How many decisions did you hesitate on because you needed emotional permission? Reassurance isn't bad, but needing it is. So here's the shift for 2026. Move from reassurance addiction to internal validation. Instead of asking, "Does anyone think I can do this?" learn to ask, "Do I think I can do this?" Instead of waiting for someone to say, "You're on the right track," learn to recognize your own progress, your discipline, your consistency, your resilience, because confidence built externally can be taken away at any moment. Confidence built internally cannot be shaken by anything. And once you stop needing constant reassurance, your mind finally becomes your own again. But here's where things get interesting. You'll start to notice that your inner strength is being quietly sabotaged by something most people never pay attention to: the things you allow into your mind and the people you allow into your environment. That's the next shift, and it might be the most practical one yet. Number 9. Guard your gates. Most people think their problems come from the world around them, but in reality, their problems come from what they let in. Your mind has gates, and every day you open them carelessly. You let in the fear from the news. You let in the bitterness from social media. You let in the anxiety of people who live chaotic lives. You let in opinions from people who have no idea who you are or what you're building. And without realizing it, you slowly turn into a reflection of everything you've allowed to influence you. 2026 will magnify this like never before, because the world is getting louder, angrier, more reactive, and if you don't guard your mental gates, your peace will be invaded by noise that was never yours to carry. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, meaning you absorb whatever you expose yourself to. Epictetus taught that you must choose your companions carefully, because you eventually become like the people you spend time with. Seneca warned that a man who walks with the sick cannot pretend he won't breathe the same air. Your environment shapes your character long before you notice the change. Think about it. If you constantly consume fear-driven content, you become anxious. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you become negative. If you let pessimists influence your goals, your ambition shrinks. If you allow toxic behavior to linger, your standards dissolve. Your life is not just built by your habits, it's built by your inputs. 2026 will reward the people who treat their mind like a fortress, not an open door. So, here's your Stoic shift. Unfollow accounts that drain you. Limit people who bring chaos, drama, or insecurity. Stop giving strangers access to your emotional state. Curate your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your surroundings. Change the inputs, and you change the entire trajectory of your life. And if you're still watching, you've just made it to the top 2 most important changes on this entire list. Most people never make it this far. They check out, get distracted, or run from the truth. But you didn't. That alone sets you apart from 98% of people heading into 2026 completely unprepared. Because the next 2 changes, they aren't just useful, they are non-negotiable if you want to thrive in the chaos ahead. Let's move to one of the hardest yet most liberating shifts you'll ever make. Number 10. Become a master of premeditatio malorum. The Stoics had a practice so powerful, so misunderstood, that most modern people avoid it because they think it's negative, but it's the opposite. It's freedom. It's called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. And it may be the most important mental skill you can build heading into 2026. Premeditatio malorum is simple. You mentally prepare for challenges, loss, setbacks, and disruption before they happen, not to live in fear, but to live unshaken. Most people do the opposite. They cling to the illusion that everything will stay the same. Their relationships, their money, their stability, their routine. They build their peace on the assumption that nothing will change without warning. But things do change. And when they do, most people collapse because they never imagined the possibility. Here's the truth. The shock is what breaks people, not the event. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius reflected daily on what could go wrong, not to worry, but to strengthen his mind against surprise. Seneca advised imagining loss so that if it ever occurred, the blow would land softer because the mind was already prepared. Epictetus taught that by expecting challenges, you meet them with readiness instead of panic. This wasn't pessimism, it was armor. Because premeditatio malorum does something extraordinary. It sharpens your awareness. It grounds your expectations. It strengthens your resilience. It turns fear into preparation and uncertainty into clarity. When you imagine adversity, not obsessively, not emotionally, but calmly and logically, you rob fear of its power. You train your mind to say, if this happens, I am ready. If that happens, I will adapt. If something shifts, I will not break. 2026 will be full of unexpected twists, financial, social, personal, emotional. Not all of them bad, but all of them inevitable. If you don't practice premeditatio malorum, you will be blindsided every time life changes direction. If you do practice it, you become someone the world cannot surprise and cannot shake. So here's your Stoic shift. Take a moment each morning and calmly imagine the challenges you might face. A plan falling apart, a financial setback, a conflict, a difficult decision, a moment of loss or disappointment. A sudden change you didn't ask for, not to fear it, not to manifest it, but to prepare for it. Because when the mind rehearses adversity, it remains stable when adversity arrives. 2026 will reward the men who train their minds for the unexpected, because they'll stay grounded while everyone else is scrambling. And once you master premeditatio malorum, you can finally move on to the final, most liberating shift of all. Because the last thing you must change in 2026 isn't about discipline or environment or identity or habits. It's about other people and the one psychological trap that destroys more peace than anything else. Very few people ever overcome it, but those who do, they become untouchable. Number 11. Accept the price. There's one thing you cannot avoid in 2026, no matter how disciplined, focused, or grounded you become. If you rise above the noise, people won't understand you. If you think independently, people will misjudge you. If you grow faster than your environment, people will distance themselves from you. And if you refuse to live the way others expect, people will assume something is wrong with you simply because you're no longer familiar. This is the hidden cost of becoming a stronger version of yourself, and most people can't pay it because deep down they want approval more than authenticity. They want acceptance more than alignment. They want validation more than truth. They want to be understood more than they want to be free. The Stoics called this the crowd problem. Kierkegaard called it the untruth. But Marcus Aurelius said it most clearly. If you follow the crowd, you'll lose yourself. If you follow yourself, the crowd will lose you. And that's where most people panic. They think that being misunderstood means they're doing something wrong, but often it means you're doing something right. Here's the reality. You cannot become exceptional while trying to be understood by people committed to staying average. You cannot become stable while trying to explain yourself to people who live in emotional chaos. You cannot become disciplined while trying to justify your priorities to people who have none. You cannot live intentionally while seeking approval from people who never question their own lives. 2026 will make this clearer than ever. The more aligned you become with your purpose, the less the world around you will recognize you. And that's not a problem. That's the proof you're evolving. So here's your Stoic shift. Stop explaining yourself. Stop seeking permission. Stop shrinking your goals so people feel comfortable around you. Be willing to be misunderstood. Be willing to stand out. Be willing to walk alone for a season if it means walking your true path. Because the moment you stop needing to be understood is the moment you become truly unstoppable. You gain a quiet power, a kind of internal sovereignty that no criticism, no misjudgment, and no opinion can touch. 2026 is not the year to blend in. It's the year to stand firm in who you've become, even if it makes others uncomfortable. And if you've made it all the way to number 11, you've proven something rare. You're willing to confront truths most people spend their entire lives avoiding. But the final step, the part that ties all 11 changes together, is coming next. This is where we complete the cycle, solidify your mindset for 2026, and give you the Stoic reminder that transforms these principles from information into identity. If you are looking back at all 11 changes and wondering if you have the willpower to make them happen, then just think about it. You've made it all the way here. That already tells me something important about you. You're not just curious about 2026. You're not here for background noise or feel-good quotes or 10 minutes of hype you'll forget tomorrow. You're here because some part of you knows you cannot walk into the next year with the same mind, the same habits, the same identity that dragged you through the last one. So, let's pull this together. 2026 will not be gentle with you. The world will not slow down so you can catch your breath. People will not suddenly become more stable, more kind, more self-aware. The chaos outside won't magically calm down, but that was never the Stoic promise anyway. The promise was never, "We'll make the world easier." It was always, "We'll make you stronger." Stronger than your impulses, stronger than your need for approval, stronger than your old identity, stronger than the storms that used to break you. Every change we've walked through in this video isn't a tip, it's a choice. You either keep chasing cheap dopamine or you build a focused mind. You either keep expecting people to be copies of you or you finally see them as they are and protect your peace. You either keep negotiating with your weakness or you become the kind of man whose decisions are made by his values, not his moods. You either drift into 2026 on emotional sand or you enter it with a solid foundation, ready for loss, ready for change, ready to be misunderstood, and still unmoved. That's the difference between surviving 2026 and owning 2026. So here's your challenge. Don't just nod at these 11 changes. Pick one you need the most and start today. Not next week. Not when things calm down. Now, write it down. Turn it into a daily practice. Revisit this video when you slip, because you will slip, and that's fine, as long as you don't stay there. If this gave you clarity, take a second right now to like the video, subscribe, and save it so you can come back to it when the year tries to pull you back into old patterns. And in the comments, tell us, which number hit you the hardest? And what are you actually going to change before 2026 begins? Not to impress anyone, not to perform, but to make a quiet decision in public that your future self will thank you for. Remember what Marcus Aurelius was really trying to teach. You may never control the world, but you can always control the kind of person you send into it. 2026 is coming either way. Make sure the version of you who meets it is not the same one who barely crawled through 2025. You're not weak. You've just been untrained. This is your training. Stay disciplined, stay observant, stay unshakable, and when you're ready to go deeper, pick one of the two videos on your screen. One is a Stoic morning routine to start your days off right, and the other is a 4-hour Stoic reset created for you to listen to while you sleep, or even just as a subliminal background noise. Pick one and keep building the mind that the chaos of 2026 cannot break. And as always, stay stoic, my friends.